now we're back down, the request to go back to a different direction. So I think we've ebbed and flowed as the needs and requests came. So we've attrition when we felt there's attrition, we've added when we felt there's an add. So that's why this is a priority. If we feel there's a need to add, there's some areas that this person can help with efficiency. So that's why it's one.
I mean, we've hashed this one out. There's no ask for us
So
tonight.
there's nothing you can cut to accommodate this, so you don't have to.
Like I said, this is the first look. These are just requests that rose to the top for priorities that says, let's put these in front of the board because they're above and beyond just a base level. If I come back in 2 months and say, okay, there's some other cuts and this position can now fit in, right now these are above and beyond what we've looked at last year. So the same thing with the teaching assistant for emotional support, behavior support classroom. This classroom is the only classroom in emotional behavior support that we have district-wide that does not have a teaching assistant. Remember Carolyn's been updating the board that we've had some increase in those categories. Now there's a need with enough kids that we should add a teaching assistant to help support that classroom at the high school. They've been without it for quite some time, and now the kids moving up are going to be too much for comfortable for one teacher. I don't want to speak out of turn, so I don't know if Judy has it.
Yeah, and it would be for the high school. But we also, I don't know the numbers moving up next year from 8th grade. I know that the 8th grade class moving up is higher numbers than what we are graduating. And I think you've heard Carolyn and some of us talk about some of the needs that we're getting in the district are higher. And these are your higher tiered classrooms where it's a lot more smaller group, a lot more one-on-one type stuff, managing behaviors and some learning support needs.
Is there a legal requirement to have a student have a class?
There is, and I don't know this one off the top of my head, Stephen. I want to say it's for this classroom, I want to say it's like 12 to 1 or 15 to 1.
Are you over that number?
Again, I don't know the 8th grade numbers going up. That's more of a Carolyn question for next year.
And I know
What are the graduating numbers this year?
In that classroom, I don't.
So I know from the budget discussions for the request was, this is also to help support this classroom and integrate them with regular ed part of, most kids with a transition plan, if they're in here to transition them back to regular ed. This would help support, because right now the teachers being pooled, both trying to run the classroom and being in regular ed, and those services to be supported by a teacher assistant where they can go out to the regular ed help teachers in the classroom.
So can you just provide the numbers of students?
Yes. Yeah, we
Yeah,
can have that money in there.
I got it.
And can you also help us to understand, flesh it out a little more on, you have regular ed, you have special ed, you have the special needs to what this particular class is addressing, and what were you doing before?
I think before we didn't have the number of kids, so the teacher was able to cover that classroom. Now with the more kids entering the classroom, that support with one teacher is no longer sustainable. So you need additional support.
So until you get that number, we don't know. It's a legal issue that we are over our student,
Right.
In the class.
We don't know if we're over the legal number, but then also to Tom's point, so let's say we're even under the number. Say it's 12 kids and the number, the threshold is 15. The point still remains, if I'm a student that has these needs and I am going to be out in the regular ed setting, sometimes I can only do that if a teaching assistant is with me to help monitor behaviors, redirect my behaviors, on task type thing, help with note-taking, test-taking, that kind of stuff. And so the teacher that's in there, she's only one person, so if I need to go out to a classroom, I'm going out to that classroom unsupported. Does that make sense?
I'm just trying to say, are these kids that are in regular ed, and do they see this person, are they in this class?
So this is an emotional support classroom, so they have a diagnosis of behaviors that impede their learning. So it's an emotional support classroom. So they are not in that classroom all day long. They may go out for English or math or a specials or electives or whatever, but they are back in that classroom. If they're having trouble, I don't love the term self-regulating, but if they're having trouble that day regulating and attending to regular education, they can go to this teacher's classroom. She will help de-escalate them, help get them back on track for the day. They may be there 15, 20 minutes. They may be there an hour until she gets them into a mindset of learning again, and then they can go back out into the regular
This
study.
is a learning support teacher.
It is a learning support teacher.
And how many learning support teachers do we have in high school and middle school?
Well,
But how many
the
teachers? How many
teachers,
teachers?
there are 4, Nikki, Michelle, Molly, and Ola. So there's 4. 3 are regular learning support, if you will, and then 1 is the emotional support teacher.
If I'm understanding it correctly, to restructure themselves, they might be a 20-minute time period, in, out. Okay, so it sounds like this classroom is having the flowing
Throughout the day.
throughout the day. And so some days it could be less, and some days it could be more.
Yes, and then we're gonna go with the number 12. Let's say she has 12 students on her caseload. She sees all 12 of those kids for at least one period throughout the day as well, where they are scheduled in with her for learning support.
If they're in one of some
No,
period.
no, it's really based on their schedule, so it depends on when they have their tours, when they have their electives, so it's different.
And then the final priority for staffing was to bring in-house the second security officer. So we know that G-Force's contract ends this June. PCCD grant funded. It's no longer there. That's being restructured or reallocated to cover the behavior specialists. At faster funding. So that's what we're covering next year. So that funding is no longer available. So the request, the priority was to bring that back in-house.
Oh, so you guys have already voted to have the second one, but it's not. Okay.
No, so what we did, the vote was to bring the security officer in-house. And we have the PCCD grant coming this year to cover the contracting services. The PCCD grant ends this year, so does our contract end. So if we want a second security officer, the board would have to bring that in-house and have a second one.
There's another grant.
Right now, the PCCD grant slated for 25, 26 is already being allocated and 100% to the second behavior specialist. So there is no grant funding at the moment, so we figure otherwise from the state.
And that would be,
The governor's address is supposed to be on February 7th, so we'll see there's additional funding. As of right now, the way PCCD has been working the past several years, 4 or 5 years, it's not likely in that aspect. They only required 1 security officer. They pretty much ramped or gave them money enough to keep districts at least funded what they chose until next year. So I don't believe from this standpoint we would try to see additional funding.
And we think we'll still need 2 even when we're down to 2 buildings.
So that's a priority, and that's if the board also wishes to have.
That is, we didn't vote, we just, answer your question, but the vast majority of the board did express the desire last year to have 2 security officers.
One each.
One for each.
So, like the discussion before, is if we have a security officer, that's a full-time person on our payroll that's non-budgeted, and we have to have essentially a tax increase to that person because they're here perpetually. It's not a one-time, it's just kind of balancing like we did for the and salary benefits. That So that would say that that is something that the board wishes to pursue. You can have what that revenue impact would be and what tax impact that would have to have this person. So that's why the conversation being like started that is these decisions, these priorities, if the board so chooses to pursue them, have an impact. We need to tie some revenue to it, to the tax increase. Well, right now, this is all we have. Like I said, Tim and I haven't had a chance to go through everything. This is just the things that we said that we wanted to bring in front of the board as the top priority that we saw initially.
So maybe you might want to go back and see and apply it and see.
So just let you know, when we add personnel, the cuts usually are one-time cuts. They don't cover a person forever. The same thing with ACTI. We could cut enough to cover an ACTI for 1 year, but that's never going to hold for the next year. The next year it's going to outpace drastically. So when we would commit to adding a second security officer, it would be very responsible for us to add a tax increase to cover at least that person, not them. Like you can't keep limping along using your fund balance for on these items. It does catch up with you. So then we'll jump into the supplies, the equipment. So the replacement cycle, we started the replacement cycle stuff last year. Victor with his maintenance, he has some equipment in the next 3 to 5 years that are end of life. So we like to start a replacement cycle for him within his budget. And it says he has a select amount of money to replace certain equipment such as mowers, such as stuff like that. So a lot of it's just mowers and some other large equipment. We've never had cycles before. It was usually a one-time ask, take it away, one-time ask, take it away. These are now, we have signaled to all the other ones with the cycles is we want you to have equipment when it's end of life, replace it, rather than wait till it basically doesn't work anymore. So it's 15 years old, we now have a replacement cycle to have. And if it doesn't have a request, then it comes off the budget. But we use our.
There was more steel in it back then, that's for sure.
So that's just a request for him. He has one piece of equipment, and we would looking at that every year as a replacement cycle. Very similar for uniform cycle we added, check replacement cycle we added. That's another check request here at the bottom. Very similar to that. So Dr. Naylor has been talking about digitizing our documents. We have looked at some software to do that. That's going to be a major overhaul here at the district. The cost is to be determined because we're not sure how many documents we want to digitize or if we want to do any of them. If we want to start now and move forward, if we want to go backwards, how much we want to do. So that cost will be very variable. So is that something the board talked about how we document, we can keep those, store those items? Do we want to just look from now forward, which is one cost, or do we look backwards and try to get everything we had prior, which is a totally different cost? So then we're going to go backwards and continue forward. So we have to look at that cost-wise.
Have you, yeah, and have you also looked at what it costs if you do nothing? What is the cost?
So the cost, well, I'll just say for the cost of that, since we're not sure what's going to happen with the middle school, is storage. The biggest thing will be cost of storage. Currently at the middle school, high school, there is no storage to store those documents. The sense of what's at the middle school that needs to be kept. We would have to have storage for the secret or some type of storage facility. Right now, in the building, there's nothing to store that amount.
Where are they stored currently?
In the middle school.
Okay, so
You
middle
can't
school.
just destroy stuff that you digitize anyway, can you? Don't you have to keep the original document?
So we're going to work through some of that document management, but a lot of it I think is as long as you can recreate the document, still count that some of the stuff we'll have to look at if we have to keep originals. Some of it is everything meet the criteria to be kept. Over the years we kept a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be kept. We have to go through it.
You ought to do that, look at all that before we go purchasing anything. Seriously.
So we need software to be able to manage that, and then the company would also digitize the stuff that we would want on our behalf.
You probably don't have to keep records for all the years.
There's a
I
lot
think
of-
you ought to look into all of it
Say-
before we go buying.
I'll just say that student records, I believe, 99 years. We can't get rid of those.
Well, I know when my son graduated, they sent him all his records with them.
We still have, yeah, we still have some that we're required to keep for 99 years.
There's a lot of stuff we have to keep for a long time.
So that answers the one question I was going to, how long do you need to keep it? So if there is a mandate that you keep it for 99 years, then the storage, whether it's middle school, whether you digitize it, or there is some responsibility to taking action on that, and those numbers would be helpful to add.
Yeah, but we should also know what it is we need to do 100% before we go buy anything. I mean, by the time
I
we
understand
figure
that.
out what
That's why
we're
I
gonna
said-
do, it could
that's
be
what I said.
antiquated, what we should do.
And what's not being digitized now, that like,
We are-
documents from this school year, what are we not
We're
Yeah,
digitizing?
still a
have to do that.
paper-driven, most school districts, I shouldn't say most, but there's still a lot of school districts that are paper-driven. We do a lot of things on paper. We keep a lot of paper stuff. Some of it is, we keep it for the 7 years are required. So some stuff 7 years, some stuff 10 years, some stuff's in between that and 99. So it just kind of depends on what it is, for how long you have to keep it.
What, do you have some examples?
So I'll just say payable, so every check we cut is on paper. And we have it in there to review for the audit. It's all paper.
That's 7 years.
Paper.
QuickBooks?
No, we have a different software, and then this particular document management system would talk with that software and be able to view it, see something in the software.
Or like, when I think digital documents, I think like the Google Drive. Like, that,
So the Google Drive can house documents, but not with this capability to integrate with our software. So like within that financial software and some of the other softwares, this integrates.
You can put it up now.
no.
We're not allowed to talk.
So that's why I said it would be a huge change for the district to move to digital, like more of a digital aspect. And then we would just need to know if we want to go retroactive or go current, because that's two different pathways.
How many other districts have paper?
I mean, that's usually not a conversation, that's a question. I can ask how many are fully digitized or even use this software that we work with. A lot of them have the same financial software.
I'm just asking a question, because sometimes you say, well, all the other districts are doing this, and they're not. So I just thought,
Well, here's my issue. My thing is, I think we should understand exactly what timeframes, what we're gonna be doing before we purchase anything. I've said it several times. But I think there should be a plan, 100% plan first, and then we get it started. Like I said, it could be antiquated by the time we.
I know that's something Eric's looking into as we speak of creating a document that has all those years.
is there multiple companies that do this service, or is it going to be beholden to a company?
No, this company in particular is the only one that integrates with our financial software. There are plenty of other companies we could look at. This is just the first one. Their product, from what the demo that I sat in on, has a wide range of uses that would be very efficient in their position to use from a document management standpoint. So that's the caveat with this one, that integrates with the current existing software and kind of builds that document management way that we don't really have.
Are there competitors that do that too?
Not to integrate with the software, but to do similar document management.
So
I think they catch it with integrate with our software.
Okay, so there's only one company.
Because they partner specifically with it. The company we have is CSIU, which is the Essential Susquehanna IU unit, has a financial software that I would say the majority of Pennsylvania school districts use. They have research and vetted this other company they partner with, and they only partner with who thing I will say is from Ohio, and they have, from what they said in the demo, about 98% of the school districts in Ohio use this document. Now they're starting to work into Pennsylvania, and I don't know how many school districts they said off the top of my head, but I know that they said they cover almost the entirety of Ohio school districts.
So are you asking for calculators for this?
So
Or
this,
for
so these are types of things of conversations that the board's had that says these are some of the priorities, and this is some of the stuff that we're looking into as a priority within the budget. So we're looking at if we can have cut stuff to accommodate that, that's something